Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. And another heavyweight news and notes mashup video today. And starting with, I guess this is going to be quite an action-packed video, quite a bit to get through, so buckle in for that. Joyce, Joseph Parker, Frank Warren confirms it's officially dead. So I think many of us had just assumed once Parker signed elsewhere, it was over. And Frank Warren at the Joyce Christian Hammer press conference confirmed as much.
You're flogging a dead horse. We'll talk about Saturday. Joe Parker's not happening. End of story. He walked away and signed with Sky TV. It's dead. He's the number one, not Joe. Who gives a monkeys? He's an opponent for us. He comes from New Zealand. With the greatest respect for people who come from overseas. He's the British guy. That's all we're interested in. If he wants to fight, it was there for him to have, and still is, but it ain't going anywhere. It ain't going on any other channel. End of story. Let them get on with it. Obviously, they signed Joe Parker to replace Anthony Joshua on Sky. That's their choice. We are where we are, and all we need to focus on is one thing: Saturday night.
So it is disappointing because it would have been WBO number 1 versus number 2, and that would have confirmed the mandatory challenger, no doubt. And bearing in mind, Joyce is not the mandatory challenger at this point, even though Frank Warren keeps calling him that. But Joyce will have to obviously look for other options. And it's a little bit thin on the ground. There is some talk about Dillian Whyte, but also Joseph Parker is chasing Dillian Whyte as well. And Joseph Parker has actually, on social media, put up a clip, Old MacDonald Had a Farm, and this is in reference to Joyce saying it's his favourite song, and the clip bringing up a duck on screen. And I guess the issue here that I have with that is, you know, Joseph Parker, the one that broke off negotiations directly with Frank Warren and then signed with a rival promoter and locked in an exclusive deal with Sky. It is kind of a situation that, with his sort of protestations in public, it is a bit of a he doth protest too much. If there's anyone that's going to wear more of the blame for this fight not happening, I'm sorry, but it's Joseph Parker. Look, I'm a Kiwi. I like seeing Parker fight and all that sort of stuff, but he is the one that really caused the situation to unfold in the way that it has. And obviously basically what he's doing now is window dressing. He knows the fight's gone. He's just trying to, in public, effectively try to make out that he still wants the fight. But your actions kind of say otherwise. And S-Jam Boxing, which manages Joyce, so they've actually put a clip up on their media saying, where is Joseph Parker? So you've got all these silly sort of back and forth things. Joseph Parker with his Old MacDonald Had a Farm and Joyce is ducking. But if anyone's going to get the duck moniker, I think people are probably going to give it to Parker. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. I know that there is one or two fervent Joseph Parker fans that are adamant that the fight's still there to be made, but we've just heard before it's not. And who's to blame for that? Well, there's some blame to go round for everyone, but Parker walked away at the end of the day. It is what it is, it's boxing, and Joseph Parker is entitled to go elsewhere. He was a free agent, didn't like the money, he's going to get better money elsewhere. But I guess the question now is, who's he going to fight? Is it going to be anyone that we're interested in seeing? And that's a question, because if it ends up being someone like, say, Jermaine Franklin, or someone sort of in that sort of top 30 to top 40 range, I think people will be disappointed. And also Sky Sports probably, signed Joseph Parker with the intent of having him in with British names, a la Dillian Whyte, a la Joyce. But if it's not that, it's a pretty tough sell. And even a Huey Fury rematch, Fury is with Sky and Boxer, that's an extremely tough sell. Anyway, moving on. So Joyce with this Christian Hammer fight. So I'm not going to do a separate preview and prediction video because really it's not a great fight. You can only polish this turd up so much. Christian Hammer is the new Kevin Johnson. He's negative, and that fight against Huey Fury, what was it, last year, he looked like he gave up even though they were claiming there was an injury. He had one of the worst fights of recent memory in terms of a viewing spectacle against Frank Sanchez, survived that. But Joyce will come forward, come swing, and he's going to club Christian Hammer. And I think ultimately either Hammer gets stopped or he decides to get out of there, retire on the stool, or through some sort of fake injury. I just think it's going to happen. So the press release says Joyce ready to go hammer and tongs. And Frank Warren actually is talking it up, saying Joe is the WBO number one, and we're looking for him to make a statement. He is in with a real tough guy in Christian Hammer, a real handful, who in his last fight went with the WBO number 3 in Frank Sanchez, and it went the distance. So he's a tough guy with a good chin. Joe has only 13 professional fights and is in a tremendous position. Joe's got to do it all. I hate this type of fight, to be honest. When Tyson Fury fought Otto Wallin in Vegas, everybody thought it would be straightforward, but he got a dreadful cut and was fortunate to go to the end of the fight and not get stopped. So anything can happen in these fights with big fellas. Joe has got it all to lose against Christian Hammer. I think that's just talking it up. It's a sales pitch for the fight. It's just a tune-up. Joyce had a broken wrist that he's coming back from. The fight with Joseph Parker fell over. Originally, it would have been in July, but he needs some activity. He's been out for a year. Joe Joyce is approaching 37 years old. He needs to stay active. This is activity. Christian Kevin Johnson Hammer, because he is the new Kevin Johnson, negative and basically coming to survive and collect the paycheck, is not going to be a threat to Joe Joyce. Joyce is going to come forward. He might wear a few shots with his, because I think what he'll do, just like he did against Carlos Takam, who's a much better fighter than Hammer, Joyce will come forward, juggernaut mode, letting his hands go. And in that scenario, he is going to take some shots, but he's got too much for Christian Hammer. And like I say, you can only polish the turd so far. Joyce is saying, I had a great training camp in Las Vegas with Salas, rehabbed the injury, and I've been adding more tools to the arsenal. I'm in a good place mentally, physically, and I think Hammer is going to be a good test and a good fight. It's not a good test, it's activity. He is tough, durable, and has been in there with some really good names. I'm really looking forward to it, getting to work and maybe going on a few things in preparation for fights to come. Working on a few things in preparation for fights to come, I should say. I'm not going to put any pressure on myself by predicting rounds. It could go the distance, or I could take him out. He's a strong guy, and I've seen him throw some big shots. It's a risky fight because I've got something they all want. In my experience, things don't always happen as you plan. So when I am in training camp, I just get myself into the best possible place and look to improve. Obviously, I was preparing for Parker, but I just made the adjustments, and I have the experience to deliver myself to victory on Saturday night. I'm chalking this up as a Joe Joyce win. I think he could stop Hammer, or there could be a retirement. If it goes 10 rounds and Joe Joyce is just trying to club him to death round after round and it goes the distance, Christian Hammer, you got to take your hat off to him with the durability. I do think the weight of Joyce's punches, he's not necessarily a one-punch concussive puncher, but he has that clubbing style that just wears guys down. So Hammer says, it is my 4th time here, and I'm really happy to get the chance of a fight with Joyce, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm also feeling very well, and I'm in good shape. There's a big chance for me, and I will give everything. I haven't come here only for travel. Well, I've got a question mark about that. Last time against Sanchez, I received the contract only a few days before. I was there on holiday. They asked me to fight, and I took the chance. For this fight, I've prepared really well, and I want to show everyone a good fight. Well, he does need to, in my view, show some level of ambition, because a lot of his recent fights at the top level have been garbage. That fight against Sanchez, one of the worst viewing spectacles on record, and part of that, the equation, was also Christian Hammer, his negativity. Sure, you can claim that, only a few days notice, but he didn't really want to fight. He didn't want to throw shots. He was just content to shell up and do the rounds and make sure he got out of there. So Hammer, for his future paydays, needs to show us something. And I'm not sure really there's much left in Christian Hammer. I think he's a spent force at this point. Like I say, he's devolving into Kevin Johnson 2.0. I know some people have gotten a little bit sort of het up about that in the past when I've said, I don't want to see Hammer anymore. He kind of is Johnson 2.0. But I think the proof will be in the pudding again here. He needs to actually do something to prove to other promoters that he's worth actually bringing in, because he's sort of wringing the last drops out of his name recognition, in my view. Oleksandr Usyk and Anthony Joshua have come face-to-face this week for the London leg press conference of their upcoming fight, which will be August 20th in Saudi Arabia. So I'll skip past Eddie Hearn and the other sort of promoter managers for Usyk will just stop on Usyk and Joshua, their comments. And there were a few other things that have been mentioned that have been picked up, in the media, things that Anthony Joshua has said. There's a couple of things I'm just going to split off and do in a separate video because it's worth talking about. But of Oleksandr Usyk, this press conference in London, he says, "I'm pleased to be here today. I'm very happy to get the opportunity to fight in Saudi Arabia and help open new horizons for the sport of boxing. I love to travel around the world and fight in places for the first time. I'm not fighting for money or any recognition. I'm just doing my job and will now continue fighting until my heart keeps beating. I'm not expecting anything from Anthony Joshua, but I know that he will be different, but so will I." Couple of things to pick up from there. I mean, I know some people have been talking about, well, if it's not about money, why are you in Saudi Arabia? I guess the question people need to ask themselves, who's running the promotion? It's Matchroom. They had the promotional rights because they gave Usyk the rematch for that fight with Anthony Joshua the first time around, and they maintain promotional control for the rematch. But I'm sure Usyk's not really going to be sort of turning down the site fee. What was it? Basically, he's getting a 50% cut of $80 million. I mean, it's nice if you can get it. I know a lot of people are disappointed the fight's going to be over there in Saudi Arabia, and justifiably so. It probably did deserve to be in the UK, somewhere that the fighters are actually from, rather than some random spot in the desert, but it is what it is. I think the fight is going to be good, and Usyk touches on something that I think people are not talking about. He will be different. He knows what Anthony Joshua is going to try to do because it's been well signaled, new trainer, all that sort of stuff, and Joshua's saying, I'm coming to bring it, war, all that sort of stuff, all the technical stuff out the door. I'm not going to try to box with this guy. So he's got months to prepare, and had months to prepare already, in another sort of month or so, 6 weeks or 2 months to the fight. He's going to be ready for Anthony Joshua in whatever style Joshua tries to bring. And with Usyk being versatile, having good footwork, and having good ring IQ, and being able to adapt even in ring, in fight, which sometimes someone like Anthony Joshua has not been able to do, I think he's ready for anything that Joshua is ready to throw at him. He's not going to be surprised by anything that Anthony Joshua is going to do. And I think a lot of people are focused on what can Joshua do different. Well, maybe people should also be asking the question, how is Usyk going to try to nullify what Joshua is going to try to do? Anthony Joshua, he says, it's hard to say from a head-to-head who's going to win a championship fight. So I don't tend to look into head-to-head so deeply. But for some, they could think that it's a 1-0 victory. That's down to opinion anyway. Shout out to everyone in Saudi Arabia as well. It's going to be my second time there. First time was lit, and it's going to be even better this time for sure. Going down to the old city was unbelievable. I'm sure you've seen some of the videos on social media. Anyone that is going, I'm sure you're going to be in for a great time in Saudi Arabia. In terms of old AJ, same old G. I'm just going to be doing what I'm doing, grafting away. It's a rough and tough sport. Fighting these lefties is a nightmare. And I cannot make the same mistake twice. I'm hungry and desperate, but at the end of the day, how I perform will speak. Seems to be a lot of sort of corporate speak there, and not too much sort of deep and meaningful to sort of read into, but Joshua knows what he needs to do, and it doesn't matter what these guys say in the press conference. They're going to have to square off. And if Joshua catches Usyk with something, which, obviously Usyk has admitted, he got caught with some shots that hurt that first fight. His face was marked up, see here on screen. It's not just one-way traffic. Joshua does have a chance in this fight, but obviously Usyk deserves to go in the favourite after that first performance. Robert Garcia, actually touch on him. He says, the whole team, everybody around us is very positive. We have to do whatever it takes. We have to come out with different strategies in case one doesn't work. We'll be ready for the fight. Anthony is listening. He believes in us, and that's the most important thing. In the ring, he's got to come out and do what we tell him to do. Usyk is a great fighter. I've known him since a few years back, and when he came to my gym a few times to train. He's a very talented fighter. He's got very different ways to fight. Seeing the size difference, the height and the reach, the weight, everything is in Anthony's advantage. We've got to take advantage of that. We've got to train him to focus on that, and come fight night, do what we need to do to win. Robert Garcia there. Easier said than done, obviously. Meanwhile, Tyson Fury, the WBC champion, has taken a break from calling Anthony Joshua a bum and other various names that he likes to throw out there, Dosser and other things, to say that people should be happy for Anthony Joshua.
So Tyson Fury, and this is my defence of AJ. Everyone's saying AJ's a bum, he says he's that, he can't fight because lost a few. But AJ has made it in life. The man can go to the pub every single day and drink Peroni if he wants to. He can go on holiday every day. He can play with his kids every day of his life. So I don't want to hear any more of this bullshit about AJ says he's that, he's useless, he can't fight. The man's made it. Be happy for him.
So Tyson Fury obviously does switch things up. Make of it what you will. Maybe he's getting a little bored in his so-called retirement. And actually, sticking with Tyson Fury, Oleksandr Usyk also has taken a little swipe and a dig at Fury, saying Tyson says that he doesn't want to fight me because I'm not on his level. That's because he's afraid of me. Well, I guess we'll see after Joshua and Usyk fight. If Usyk wins again, we'll have to see if an undisputed fight is on the table and whether Fury is interested if Usyk is the opponent, so-called retired at the moment. Adam Kownacki has given a virtual press conference ahead of his fight against Eren Demirezen at the end of July. So saying in his section, so this is actually an undercard fight, it's the co-main event with, Danny Garcia and Jose Benavidez as the main event. Kownacki says, "This is the biggest fight of my career. I have to win to stay relevant in the heavyweight division. I'm training hard and I'm ready to win. Having two kids these last few years has been life-changing for me, but I can't have everything with a cherry on top. I had to make more sacrifices in my life for this training camp to make sure that I stayed focused. I never thought I was done after fighting Robert Helenius. My goal is to just always go out there and do my best. My first boxing goal was to win the New York Golden Gloves, and I did that in my first year. My goal now is to win the world title, and that's what I'm working toward. I had a good 20 fights, I hit a bump in the road, but on July 30 I'm coming to get a win and then I'm back right on track. I want to get to a world title shot in the next year or two. With my team, I know that I can get that done. It's going to be a red and white arena out there to support me. It's going to be another great night. I can't wait to be back in Brooklyn at Barclays Center. The footwork is really what we focused on. I remember being in camp with Vladimir Klitschko and being amazed by his footwork. I worked on it a lot back then, but I got a little away from him. The fans are going to get what they always see with me. It's fireworks. I can't wait to be back in Brooklyn. Fight night can't come soon enough. For a while, I could go blow to blow and come out on top. The past couple of fights didn't end that way, so we went back to some of our basics. That's what I have to do to take the next steps. Well, he focuses there as one of the things he's worked on is his footwork. But really, his main problem is he's got no defense. He doesn't move his head and he gets hit a lot. And with so many tough fights under his belt, he's looking like a little bit of a spent force and his chin might have cracked. So I'm glad in these comments that he didn't, as he did when the fight was announced, basically sort of say, look, there was some stuff going on in my life and that was responsible for why I lost. He needs to acknowledge that his defense needs to be better. If his footwork is a bit better, maybe he's going to be able to get out of the way of some shots. But then he talks about going blow for blow and coming out on top. In Eren Demirezen, he's facing a guy who's not a puncher. So this is careful matchmaking in a way, but it is also a very tough fight for the reason that Demirezen is very tough and durable. He's kind of a mirror of Kownacki a little bit, roughly the same height, maybe a little bit smaller, but he comes forward, he likes to sort of, throw a lot of punches, but he's not a big hitter. That's good matchmaking for Kownacki, but in the same breath, if Demirezen keeps coming forward and Kownacki gasses, which he does gas in some fights and has gassed, he could end up getting outworked. He may not get stopped, but he could get beaten. And so it is a big fight, and he needs to come back with a good performance to actually prove to people that he is still relevant in the heavyweight division, as he says he wants to prove. So we'll see July 30. It's a big question mark, and certainly his chin, and they've matched him with a non-puncher, so I guess they're trying to take one spoke away from that could sort of... Because I think even if he wins and he looks a bit shaky, I think the matchmaking's got to be modest. Talking about a world title for the next year or two, dreaming at this point. Derek Chisora, meanwhile, has commented on Anthony Joshua. Maybe I should have had this a little bit earlier in the video, in terms of his fight with Usyk, and this is a comment that he made to IFL. If he gets knocked out, it's actually good for him. If he loses on points, it's bad for him, you understand. If he loses on points, he's going to kick himself for the next 20 years, but if he gets knocked out, I got knocked out. I can't do anything after I get knocked out in the 5th round. If you went to the 6th round, I would have knocked him out. Okay, so some of that didn't all make sense, but you know what he's saying. It's the manner of the loss. Because if Joshua doesn't engage as much as he could, doesn't go out on a shield and sort of try to take risks to get the win, if he's finding himself behind and meekly gets to a decision, then people are going to think about it a certain way. Maybe coming back from a knockout, as Chisora has done many times, and if it's, you're really going for it in the fight, then Joshua can still pick it up and go, well, actually, I gave it my all. I see what he's saying. Michael Hunter, he is saying that there is a new date for his fight with Hughie Fury, new bounty as he says, and of his current condition. He's looking in pretty good shape, so posting this photo to social media. Given Hunter has looked in recent fights a bit out of shape, a bit unmotivated, arguably lost to Jerry Forrest and fought another guy in Mike Wilson that no one cared about, and he looked a bit out of shape and flabby. He's looking in better condition here, and obviously it's kind of been one continuous training camp to some extent after Hughie Fury pulled out of what would have been a fight for this weekend. But he says no sick days at Sky Sports boxer and Ben Shalom. So I think if he stays in shape, that's the best chance against Hughie Fury, who we know does have a decent gas tank, can box and move. So Hunter can't be out of shape because that will give an advantage to Fury. Frank Sanchez is now calling out Deontay Wilder. And is it just me, or the only time you really hear from Frank Sanchez is the odd interview that pops up and he'll call out a name, it's not realistic, and you're kind of like, whatever. So this sort of falls into that boat a little bit. I mean, he's got a new trainer. He's left Eddie Reynoso. He's gone to Joe Goosen. He's vowing to be more exciting. But, at least call someone out that's realistic. Deontay Wilder's not fighting Frank Sanchez. I'm sorry, it's just not realistic. It's kind of ridiculous. Frank Sanchez couldn't fill a phone booth with fans, and some of his fights have just, like the Christian Hammer one, it was dire. I mean, I remember my post-fight review notes from that one. Just round after round, I stopped writing notes and just wrote dire. It was just terrible. So he can sometimes just cruise and go, okay, well, I'm going to get the decision. He obviously recognizes he can't obviously just do that. But the call out of Deontay Wilder where he says, I have my eye on Deontay Wilder, that's the guy that I know I can beat easy and without a doubt, or knock him out. That's an easy fight. I'm not Luis Ortiz. The only thing that he has is power. He doesn't know how to box. Well, none of this is earth-shattering. We know that Deontay Wilder is somewhat limited on the boxing front in terms of the polish with his skills. But he does have power, and he's got some advantages over Frank Sanchez. But also some of that advantage is he doesn't need to look at a guy like Frank Sanchez this late in his career. Deontay Wilder's got other options not named Frank Sanchez that he could pick and still get paid millions of dollars. Frank Sanchez is still sort of begging for scraps at this point. Periodically with these call-outs, calling out guys like Joyce or Parker or Josh or Fury, Wilder. His management needs to get him into some meaningful fights. It's just kind of that simple. But finishing his quote, he says, they're basically the same fighter. They only have a power punch. I know a talent and technique that I have and what it takes to get victory. I hope I get the opportunity to fight Wilder. Delusional. Let's move on. So Jarrell Big Pharmacy Miller, so set to return according to Boxing Scene July 23rd in Tennessee. So we'll wait for some more details on that. There's not really too much more in the story, but Miller had in his most recent, after his most recent fight, which was against Ariel Bracamonte in Argentina, said he wanted to be back out within a few weeks, and looks like it will be roughly a month. Peter Kadiru and Derek Chisora spotted here. This is a post from Kadiru from his social media. And the reason that I wanted to comment on this, and I don't know if it's because Chisora has dyed his beard, but all these recent posts with Chisora where he's been featured, he just looks washed. He looks like, tired, old. Even before he gets in this fight with Kubrat Pulev, he kind of looks done. There was another one as well, and here it is. This was with Johnny Fisher. Similar sort of look, that he was, basically on death's door. So I look at some of these and go, oh, given some of what we saw against Joseph Parker, where he looked pretty washed and done. I mean, he's really trying to talk it up with, some of the promotional work for Chisora Pulev too, but I'm not sure what we're going to expect when that fight comes around. If he gets busted up and taken out, knocked out by Pulev, where do you go from there? I mean, this was already a bit of a hard sell for people to swallow as a main event, given the first fight wasn't necessarily all action. But yeah, what do you make of some of this? I know it's just a photo, but sometimes, as they say, a picture can say 1,000 words. Talking of Johnny Fisher, who is going to be back in August, he's been sparring with Fabio Wardley. Wardley back July 9th. No opponent at this point for Wardley, so that's not encouraging. A week or so out from the fight. And also another heavyweight on that card, Solomon Dacres, no opponent for him. Someone who had put his hand up to be an opponent for Fabio Wardley was Argon Smakici, but looks like that's come and gone and fallen through. Smakici has been announced to fight on the 15th of July. The post from his management says Smakici 18-1-0, remembering he just recently knocked out Lenroy Thomas, currently in training camp with Anthony Joshua in the UK, preparing for his fight against Fernando Almeida. We are looking forward to an exciting heavyweight fight, blah blah blah. So yeah, that sounds like that's just a stay busy fight to some extent. And Frazer Clarke, he will be returning at the end of July on the same card as Ben Whittaker. That will be in Bournemouth in the United Kingdom. No opponent as yet. And I know some people are really looking at Clarke going, they think he can do something. I need to see more. One or two of his amateur fights and also what was his first pro fight, I'm not super impressed. I just need to see more. I'm not sure where his ceiling is. I'm not even sure he can make it to world level or close to it. But happy to be proven wrong on these things. And Christian Hammer to round out this, or actually not quite rounding it out, but this is the promo poster for his upcoming fight. Opponent is now locked in as Curtis Harper. So let's hope that Harper is going to get paid and he doesn't sort of do a walk out of the ring as he did a number of years ago against F.A. Ajagba. But Harper, he's probably going to get stopped here. It's actually a step down from where Thun has been fighting. He fought like the likes of Amron Sands and, dropping down to a more ranked journeyman in Curtis Harper. Yeah, not great. But Thun starting to build a little bit of momentum. We'll see where the next couple of years takes him. And rounding out this heavyweight news and notes mashup video, feels like a bit of a marathon. Arslanbek Makhmudov wrecking boxing machines in Russia, in his home region of Dagestan. So yeah, topping that one out as you can see at 999. Makhmudov set to return in September, according to BoxRec. No opponent as yet. I wouldn't want to be on the end of that punch, that's for sure. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.